So a couple days ago, I got a sub 10 3x3 solve. Now sub 10 is the biggest barrier for 3x3, so I was really excited when I got my sub 10. And actually it was an 8-second solve, so it was a sub 9. So in this video, I'll be recreating that solve and reconstructing the solve to show you guys how I got my first sub 10 or sub 9. So up to this point, I had been practicing a lot of 3x3 lately, and now my goal is to get more sub 10s and a sub 10 average. So this PB was set on March 6th, so that was probably a few weeks ago compared to when I upload this video. If you guys are already sub 10 or want to be sub 10, please be sure to drop a comment below and asking for tips or give tips in the comment section below. Alright, so the scramble's on the screen right there, and if you want to, you can pause the video right here, do the scramble, and see if you find the solution because it's not entirely hard to find. So as you can see, at first we have these two white edges solved, so we know we're doing white cross for this one because these two edges are already solved, and then conveniently the blue is connected to its centerpiece and the orange one is right there. So in inspection, I saw that I could do a 3-move cross right here, and then I also saw this pair in the back because if I do a U prime like that, then I knew that this one would get preserved, and then I could go straight into this pair without doing a D move or anything. Now there's also this pair. I didn't quite see it in inspection, but it would get broken up anyway, so that pair doesn't really matter. So I predicted my first pair, which I've been practicing a lot lately, and I get this pair right here, which is very easy to predict. So then what I do is I do a U prime, then you do an R prime, just like that to put the blue in, then you do an F, just like that. Then I can go straight into this pair, and then I can insert it just like that. Now you guys probably have done this too, but if you get a PB and then you try the scramble again, it ends up being like a lot faster, just because in the moment of when I solved this and when I did this scramble, I was looking for new things. But if you try a PB again, you can easily solve it in like 5 seconds, which is a pretty interesting fact. So then it automatically pairs up this pair, and I can back insert it. Now there's this edge which is connected to the front, and then the other edge is over here. So I kept it like this, and I already knew that that edge was connected to the back. So in this case, I needed to rotate because this is the only rotation I need to do, because both of those edges are connected to the front and back, which means I'll need to do a rotation for them. So I do my one rotation right here, insert that one in, and as you can see, there's the yellow corners all over right over here. So that means the last corner is right here. And then I can insert this pair into the back just like that. Now this is the OLL for this scramble, and it's a pretty easy OLL. It's a dot case, but it's one of my fastest dot cases. The way you do it is you do R, then you do a U2 with your left hand, then you go straight into a sledgehammer, then you do a U2 again, then you do another sledgehammer, and that led me straight to a PLL skip. So that's how I did it in 8 seconds. Now an interesting fact is, if you're in this dot case, as you can see, I have the bar in the front and then the two opposite colors for the corners in the back. And this is the PLL skip case that I just showed you. But if you do it the other way, since it's a mirrored case, so it's the same on both sides, and then I do it, it leads me to an E perm. So the funny thing is, if you ever come to that case, and this happens a lot in OLL, there's some cases that are mirrored, and if you do the same algorithm in one direction versus the other, then you can get a skip or an easier PLL, but if you do it in the other one, then you get a harder PLL. Now, if we look back on the solve, and I reconstructed the whole thing right after I did the solve, and I noticed that there really wasn't too much I could improve on besides my slow turning, because I could have inserted those F12 pairs quicker. The fundamentals of getting your first sub 10 are: 1, get lucky because I got a PLL skip. 2, I already saw this first pair in inspection, and then I put that one in, so that's another fundamental. Another one is obviously get a lucky pair, but look ahead to your next pair so you can see this pair going into the back. And then another one is finding if you should rotate or not, because as you can see in this solve, for the first part, I did the cross from this orientation, but then what I did was I rotated once, because if the edges that aren't yellow are matching either the left or the right, you can do that rotationless, but if they're matching the front or the back, then you can't do it rotationless, which is a very interesting tip. I mean, you could use a sledgehammer, but from this side, since they're both matching the front and the back, what you need to do is you need to know precisely when you should rotate, because you don't want more than 3 rotations in a solve. Then I insert this pair, and then I can do this one. Now, I think I did something like that, But what you want to do is you want to keep your hands in home grip and do something like that. And then my Ola was very easy. I could do it without re-gripping. And then I got my PLL skip, which was the lucky part. So if you want to get your first sub 10, my tips for you are 1, plan out your cross and your first pair in inspection. It's a lot easier to get a good sub 10 if you can solve cross plus 1 in less than 2 seconds, because that puts you ahead very quickly. So make sure that you plan out your cross and your first pair in inspection. The next one is to look ahead to your other pairs. So make sure you know how you can solve each pair and look ahead to it instead of looking to your first pair. The next tip is to regrip less and rotate when you need to, because in that solve I only did 1 rotation, and I did it when I could solve the second 2 pairs, because the first 2 pairs I could solve them rotationless, but the second one I had to solve with the rotation. So that's my next tip to you, to make sure that you know when you should rotate, because you can see if the edges are matching the front or the back, and that's when you know you need to rotate. And then obviously my last tip is to get a good last layer, because that really helps, but you can't really plan that out. The other tips are the only ones that you can actually put in your solve, but if you follow all those tips, you're bound to get your first sub 10. Now at the time when I got my first sub 10, I averaged 15 or 16 seconds, which isn't bad, but my times were pretty scattered. I was getting a lot of 11s and 12s, but once this solve came around, I didn't know that I would get a lucky solve. I just knew that I got a lucky cross plus 1, so that's when I knew I needed to take advantage of my easy cross plus 1. My PB before this one was a 10.89, which is about 2 seconds more than this one, which is kind of crazy that I beat my PB by 2 seconds. But really, those fundamentals that I showed you before are the fundamentals of getting your first sub 10. And it's a lot easier to get your first sub 10 when you average about 15 or 16 seconds. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't already, please be sure to like and subscribe. Also comment when you got your first sub 10 and what you averaged down in the comment section below. I hope this video helped you learn how you can get your first sub 10. And as always, be sure to check out the other videos on my channel, and I'll catch you all in the next one.